I thought we were just going to sing again.
I know.
Casey, Casey, she teased last week, is going to now explain to us what it means to be an engineer.
There are various types of engineers, and I think that they're all valid, and you do not have to have a PE to be considered an engineer.
Okay. That was just a
software engineer, interestingly enough.
That's just are you really?
Yeah. I worked in the field for like 6 years until like maybe August or something like that when I went full time with YouTube.
Nice. You don't do anything with it now?
No, unfortunately, I thought about like getting on GitHub and maybe contributing to some like open source stuff. I don't know. Maybe one of these days.
What exactly does as a software engineer? I know that there's probably 900 different things you can do, but what was it that you were gonna do before YouTube happened?
For the majority of my time that I was a software engineer, I worked in financial technology, in like banking systems and financial institutions and stuff, basically writing code for them, that kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it was actually a really cool experience. I was writing a lot of C# APIs. This is probably getting into the weeds for some people, but had a buddy who was kind of working on the Angular front end. I was working on the back end. It was pretty cool. It was fun.
People in the chat want to know if we coordinated when we decided what we were going to wear. Right? And
yeah, that's what I was laughing at.
Yes, we did.
That's hilarious.
Now we will be tomorrow morning. We will be on the front cover everywhere of Who Wore It Best. Right. Of course, everyone has everyone. And hey, Jeff Holiday, I see you in the chat. How you doing, sir? It's good to see you. I wanted to start out tonight by okay. So since we didn't have a show last night, I hung out with everybody in the voice room in Discord, and those bunch of people in there, and we were having. Okay, so everybody knows there's a lot going on within our various communities that is, has everyone at their wits' end on social media platforms. Yeah. So last night I fully prepared myself going into this conversation last night with everyone that was probably going to get brought up. I was going to have to go through the whole thing or whatever. This is why I love you guys, the people who watch the show. Not once was it ever brought up. We led off with Bigfoot, furry porn, and then ended up with yeah. Well, because we have there's a furry porn star that's coming on Friday to talk about what they do and how the furry porn industry is. Now, I didn't know this, but there's a very thriving furry porn community, like big time. And I went and did my I did my research for this stream coming up.
Of course you did.
Yeah. It takes
it's a respectable thing to do.
Listen, I love people who are furries. I love it. I don't get it. It's not my thing, but I think they're great people. If it was something that I would ever get into, it would take me a long time to get into that. And for one very reason, not because I don't think that not because I think that the outfits are weird in any way. I hate sweating, like even with just standard clothes on. But I can't imagine what it's like when you have
put ice packs in them.
Oh, you'd have to. Yes. Or I have to put like one of those, a window unit like hooked up to the back of my suit to just blow in. That's the only way I can do it.
I think they have window units, but I don't think it's for that.
But I wanted to kick off and I can't find it. I saw it on Facebook earlier. And
folks, he said unit, folks.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Very nice, Dave. But anyway, oddly enough, Bigfoot was in the news today. Here we go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now this was the headlines across several different news agencies, and it was funny because there's a guy who comes on here to debate quite a few times. His name's Wayne Fillmore, and I saw his post on Facebook and it made me laugh because he said, "My ex I think it was his ex-girlfriend, was an astrophysicist, and she believed in Bigfoot. And I just thought that was like, I mean,
It was funny.
how? Anyway, here's the headline: Possible Bigfoot sightings reported in Northeast Georgia, according to a Facebook page. So you know that this is 100% accurate,
legit.
everyone.
Yeah, it's legit. If it was on a Facebook page, it's legit.
Yep. Within a week's time, there have been 2 reported sightings in North Georgia of a creature suspected to be the legendary Bigfoot. Details were posted on the Facebook page for Expedition Bigfoot. Now,
have you seen that show?
No.
Oh, it's good.
I've not heard of that myself.
It's good.
It's a TV show, Expedition Bigfoot?
Yeah, I think that's what the TV show is called. It's all about hunting for Bigfoot.
Well, the description of this is epic. It says that the post said the driver braked when he saw what he described as a very dark 7 to 10 foot. That's a bit of a discrepancy. 7 to 10 foot. That's 3 feet. That's a yard. Hairy 2-legged creature with a pointed head walking along the shoulder of the road into the woods about 8:30 on Monday. He said his arms were very long and he walked extended to the sides. He pulled over, skidding to the gravel, and waited on the backside of the small patch of the woods, thinking it would emerge on the other side. Now, if you saw something that was 7 to 10 feet tall with a pointed head and arms that nearly dragged the ground, would you pull over to the side of the road and wait for it to come back out?
Fuck no.
Most definitely not.
No.
Also, the show is not called Expedition Bigfoot. It was called Finding Bigfoot. My bad. But no, I would not stop for that shit. I'd be like, I'd get the fuck out of there. Mm-hmm.
Simeon in the live chat said, so that's the asshole that almost hit me. That's funny. So yeah, I thought that was weird because we actually here in North Carolina, and this is what I was telling everybody last night, about 10 minutes away from me is a city called Madison. And Madison voted, okay? Their city legislator voted to make Bigfoot the official animal of the city of Madison.
No.
That is ridiculous.
And we're voting mythological creatures in as official animals, but we can't have marijuana. You have to smoke marijuana to get to the point to where you want to nominate Bigfoot for the official animal. I don't get it.
We can have Bigfoot as a supernatural creature, as an animal, like a state animal, or a city animal, but like we can't have abortions.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of drama, I have enjoyed battling it out with the Warriors for Christ on Facebook. I have to tell you, I don't normally toot my own horn, but I am slinging some fire at these motherfuckers.
I've not heard about this stuff. What is happening with that? I don't get on Facebook very often.
It's amazing. Go ahead, Casey.
Well, so on Friday, I don't know if you saw it, John went out he saw the YouTube channel Warriors for Christ. They have like 500,000 subscribers, as far as I understand it. They were streaming from Huntsville. They were here where we live, doing a protest at a women's center here. And so John decided that he was going to go out there and talk to them. So not really counter protest necessarily. Like he didn't take any signs or anything. He didn't yell and shout. He just wanted to go talk to them. Kind of street epistemology style. So he found out where the women's clinic was that they were at, went, and as soon as he got there were 3 dudes that just started screaming at him. Now, John live streamed this on the Godless Engineer YouTube channel, and it was like 40-something minutes long. There was no physical altercation of any sort. There was a point in time where the volunteers thought it would be best if John moved back because they felt like just his presence, even though he wasn't doing anything wrong, was like provoking them to be more aggressive. So John moved back, and then kind of just watched for a little bit and talked to the volunteers, and then had a conversation with a younger guy and then left, right? So that was Friday. Apparently yesterday they were back protesting, and a lady, as far as they've said, now I don't know the accuracy of this story because I've seen how much they lie. Apparently this woman ran up on the curb and tried to run them over. They're blaming us for inciting violence against them because some people left comments on our YouTube video, on John's video, saying, you know, they should be run over, or like if I was driving by, I would throw poop at them, or there were just some comments, which once John realized that those comments were there, like they were brought to his attention, he went and deleted them, because we don't condone violence against people. We just don't.
Yeah.
Right. We just do not condone violence. They are free to protest. We don't like what they're saying, but they're free to protest, and as long as they're not physically harming anyone. I do feel like they do emotional harm, and that's one of the reasons why I really don't like them. But they're not breaking laws by doing it. So anyway, these Warriors for Christ people started putting out there that we incited violence against them, and that we got somebody to come out there and try to run them over. And they're talking about going to the police and all kinds of crazy shit. And they're nuts. I mean, they're crazy.
Now, when John put out his message saying, "I don't condone violence," I didn't harp that thing on purpose. I came in with, if it was me, I would absolutely have hearted the message that said, whatever, good on you for trying to run these people over or whatever. If you saw the thing that I did, now, personally, let me put this disclaimer out there. I don't advocate for violence against anyone. I would not perform violence against anyone. However, if you're going to perform violence, and it has to be against someone, these are pretty good candidates.
That's interesting. I actually talked about this a little bit on my live stream the other night about like the whole violence thing and stuff. I didn't interrupt, did I? Did you want to say something else?
No, that was
it. They were nuts.
Okay. Yeah. My viewpoint on it is, I guess I would call myself a pacifist, maybe. Not entirely. Like there are cases in which violence is necessary. For example, if somebody breaks into your house in the middle of the night, you should be able to use physical force to defend yourself or something.
Well, self-defense, sure, I agree.
Sure, but in any other case, I don't believe that violence is necessary. Like especially in discourse, it has absolutely no place in discourse for politics or any of that stuff. You know.
I would agree, but what they were engaging in, what those people engage in, and I agree with you. I think that you should never resort to violence, but I can see someone's case for getting to that level with them, because what they do is disgusting. It's terroristic. The way that guy was in those people's faces, screaming like that at them, like this is what hell's going to sound like when you're burning for eternity.
Yeah. There was one point in the video where the guy they all had loudspeakers or megaphones, either like a thing with the speaker on their chest, or they had various types of things to amplify their voices, because apparently they're not heard loud enough. And one guy just screamed at one point, and John looks at him and is like, "Why are you screaming like a 5-year-old?" And the guy was like, "Because that's what hell sounds like."
Yeah.
And
Okay.
It was so
disturbing.
Ridiculous.
That's insane.
And the thing with the women that need those services too, trying to get in the place, and being, number one, they're going through, who knows what with their situations as it is.
Right.
Having to make those decisions, trying to get in there. And yes, I did say terroristic, because that's exactly what they were. Those are terroristic. Those were terroristic
tactics.
tactics that they were using. So yes, I'll say it again to Peniel. Whatever, did Kyle seriously say that? Yes, I seriously said that.
It's a terrorist tactic. Most of the services that place provides aren't abortion. There are things like pap smears and other women's health care related stuff. And it's like
birth control to prevent unwanted pregnancy.
Prevent the very thing that they were protesting. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the very first things that John asked was he asked the three guys who like came at him right at the beginning. He asked them to name one other thing that the clinic does besides abortion. And they could not name a single thing that the clinic does. And when they realized they didn't know anything else, they were just like, it doesn't matter. They kill babies. And they call it the murder mill. It's unbelievable.
See, how could you not? I mean, I'm sorry, but how could you?
They act like there's a line of people in there that are pregnant saying, hey, get this thing out of me.
Who would get upset if they did get hit by a car? I mean, like I said, not advocating violence here, but I'm also not going to spare any emotions if that were to be the case. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, luckily nobody did actually get hit. At least from their story. Again, they've lied so much about us on Facebook that it's gotten pretty bad. It's gotten pretty bad, but we have video evidence. John live streamed the entire thing, and he did not. The guy is accusing John of assault. John did not assault him. He didn't touch him. And there's another person who actually contacted the Facebook page who said they have the video from another angle that proves also that John did not touch him. So, they're threatening going to the police and all of this, and they're threatening to get our YouTube channel shut down. And so,
of course,
it's just drama.
Are they
really think it's going to work though?
Yes, right? Absolutely. Yeah. They've reported the channel for terrorism. They've reported the channel for hate crime. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For hate crime? What?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find what's the guy that responded to me this morning and called me. He had a string of, let me see if I can find it real quick. He had a string of things that he was calling me.
They also said we're a cult, that atheists are a cult.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what he said.
Here. That's what we're going to be talking about here in just a second, but I wish I could find that guy that spat off at me this morning. Probably don't. He called me like a fascist. I can't remember the insult now, but it'll come to me later. Anyway, he spout off like 9 different things that I was this morning because I had the nerve to say that I would heart that comment. Anyways, I don't think they're going to succeed in getting your channel shut down. You didn't do anything wrong. The proof's there. And to John's credit, when the lady at the place was talking to him, he didn't put up he didn't raise his voice, nothing. He went and calmly just recorded them making complete idiots of themselves. So
yeah, and I actually want to point something out here. I could be wrong, so forgive me if this is incorrect, but you should probably find out on your own. I believe that when I don't know why I'm saying this. When Rationality Rules had like 30,000 subscribers, his channel was actually shut down, like completely deleted. And the community, Cosmic Skeptic and others helped him rebuild it. And now it's at like 200,000 something or other. And of course, Bering, like him or hate him, that happened to him. His channel was deleted when it was really big, and then it was rebuilt pretty quickly. You guys, if it gets shut down, I'm sure that we can all work together and fix the problem. I wouldn't worry.
Yeah. And what did his get shut down for back then?
Goose? Rationality Rules? I don't even remember. Yeah. I think it was something really stupid.
He has not had luck with that, because I remember he was telling us a story about how he accidentally deleted his entire channel, lost all of his videos.
That may be the case.
And everything. And like YouTube wouldn't restore it. That's the crazy thing. YouTube would not go back and restore it for him. He had to start all over again.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was at about 30,000 subs. So
I mean, like you said, love him or hate him, like, I don't know if I would have the, like, I would be crushed if that happened. You know, whether
Yeah.
it got taken down or, yeah, I don't know if I would have that drive and determination, but I mean, he did. He got in there and built the thing back up, and
I mean, he had an
you know,
audience still, you know? There
yeah,
was an audience there, they just didn't have anywhere to go, so once they knew where to go, they all gathered basically immediately, like, he just shot right back to 20,000 almost immediately when people figured
yeah.
it out, so
Did I don't know if before we jump into the Colts thing, I don't know if I've like if we've had a full-fledged conversation about, you know, other things, Telltale, since we
yeah,
got back from Faithless Forum. And I wanted to ask you, because I think you would appreciate the story more than
okay.
anyone, if you heard about what happened with me the night after the after party.
No, I didn't. What happened?
I thought that was the
Okay,
night
good.
of the after party.
Oh, yeah, technically, yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
Okay.
yeah, it was.
It was
Okay, so
after the after party happened.
right.
Yes.
And you know how
Mhm.
everybody was there, right? Everybody was, you know, drinking and eating and socializing. But I was up at the bar, and me and Arn had just, which, by the way, you can go see me and Arn's appearance with the Atheist Edge, where we do trivia. That's on the Atheist Edge channel if you want to check that out. They just premiered it last night. But we had just got done filming that, and we went in, and everybody at the bar was like, come on, let me get you a drink. And I don't drink, like, really at all anymore. And
I
so
don't
it
either.
doesn't take me much. I think the before that night, the last time I drank anything was at Casey's the night before the wedding, and I was drunk ranting about the flat Earth that night. And
It was great. That's on stream. So like,
yeah, you can go check that out too. But I'm never doing a drunk stream again ever. I woke up the next day and was watching it, and I was like, oh my god, you could tell I was so drunk. But so by the time it closed or the party was over, me, Paul, and Shannon, we got in Paul's car and we went back to the hotel. And I remember seeing Jamie Boone from the ACA in the lobby. I don't know why he was in the lobby. He was the only one. He was by himself in the lobby. And I went into this little stand that they had and bought a gigantic Kit Kat bar. I remember that. And then I got on to the elevator, and Paul and Shannon were up a floor above me. So I was on the 5th floor. They were on the 6th. And I got off the elevator, made it to my room, and I took off my belt and I laid it on the bed. Now, that's where I black out. I come to that night, and I'm in the middle of Walmart with a buggy, a bag of gummy bears inside the buggy, and holding a red Adidas hat.
Oh, that's funny. Wait, what? So how long were you blacked out? Like, what time period was this? Do you know?
I woke up in Walmart at like 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. So
Okay, God, you drank so much.
yeah, I did. I drank a lot. Now here's the other interesting part. I took an Uber from the hotel to Walmart, and it was a $4 Uber ride. I paid Uber $24. So either
Oh
I
my
really liked
God.
that I really liked that Uber driver, or I pissed him off somehow and I was trying to make amends. I don't know which.
Probably thought he was cute.
Maybe.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe. So
Mhm.
I knew
funny.
that all that story is just to illustrate this. If you're young and you're watching this show, when I was younger or when I was in college, we would get drunk and black out, and we would instantly want to go party some more, go to a strip club, you know, go wild. When you get my age, when you hit your 30s, your your blacked out brain goes, this is a really good time to go to Walmart, Cal. Go crazy.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
I've never blacked out from alcohol before.
You haven't? You need to put that on your
I
bucket
almost
list.
never drink. Yeah, I know.
I don't drink at all anymore, but I have blacked out when I was in college before, but only a couple of times. But I haven't drank since I was 21. So
yeah, same roughly. I drank a glass of champagne like a month ago or something at AA Con. That's about it.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the black sheep here because I have so many stories of me in college. One of my fraternity brothers owned a bar, there, and he was an alumni at the time, but he owned a bar there, and I've gotten kicked out of that bar so many times. And the feeling that you get when you wake up the next morning after having one of these nights, and everybody's like coming around you going, "Dude, do you remember what you did last night?" The worst phrase ever. And I don't know how like kids today are fucked. I don't know how they're going to have a career or professional life ahead of them, because everything now is everything now is on video. Like back then we still had those block Nokia phones that you could literally run over with your car and it wouldn't affect your cell phone. I mean, it it had two colors, light, dark, and dark. There wasn't these millions of colors on there. And if I had or if people had those when I was in college, I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be able to get on YouTube.
Prison.
Well, that already happened. I've already been there.
Right.
Already been there. So yeah. Anyways, a lot of people are asking me about the sky out situation. I don't know. There's a guy that he's had it out for me for a long time, ever since the debate didn't go well for him on here. But he's released, or he's recorded all of these shows where he's doing like all of these voices and having conversations of me as I was when I was in jail. Like he's going back and chronologically my life as he thinks it played out. And it's just so weird to hear that from somebody else. But yeah, I don't know how to handle that. I just listened to it and I thumbs it up and told him, this is really good stuff. So
yeah, okay. I've actually just to touch on that real quick.
Sure.
I've had somebody repeat back to me something that my dad said to me when I was 14. That was kind of bizarre, really, really bizarre. So I know exactly what you mean with that.
What was it?
I don't even remember now. It was something about, I don't remember. I'll find out and I will text it to you and you'll laugh your ass off about it later.
So, TellTale, what's going on in your world? It's been a while since we've had you on.
Yeah. Well, I had Faithless Forum. That was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. If people can't tell, I'm sick. You may be able to hear it in my nose. Sound kind of funny. Anyways. Yeah. Faithless Forum was awesome. It was just the best. After Faithless Forum, I went to hang out in Nebraska for a while. Then, I came back and to my house, and it's just a lot of drama and a lot of crazy things happening on the internet, and just trying to navigate that minefield carefully and failing miserably at it. That's about it.
Oh wow, I don't think you're failing miserably at that, TellTale.
I appreciate that. You're full of it.
if in case people, no, I really don't think, and I'll tell you why. In case people are wanting to know, we'll probably address this at the top, and then we're going to go into the cults thing. But I know a lot of you probably do have questions if you follow any of us on Twitter about the situations that are going on. We're not fueling any or fanning any flames anymore. I think, or at least I'll speak for me, and then I'll let the other two speak for themselves. But it's become apparent to me a lot that people love this sort of blood sport, in engagement on Twitter and social media, and it is draining. Like, just to be completely honest, I don't think people like when you're constantly bombarded, and with my channel, just being over 30,000, I can't imagine what it's like on it scaled up when you have like 45, 50,000 like GE, or up into the 6 digits like TellTale. Even with the 30 that I have, it is so taxing on your mind, because you're constantly trying to do, at least with me, I'm trying to plan out other shows. I have, the artwork stuff to do. Like, there's just so much to do, answering other emails that have nothing to do with this stuff. And this just always, it's like this. This is how I equate it. It's like somebody has an annoying little stuffed animal that they set in front of you. And I moved the stuffed animal over to the side because I want to do other stuff. And this person keeps sitting it right in my face constantly. Like it won't go away. And so what I've decided to do personally is I'm just not engaging in that anymore. I'm not going to allow other people to deem me something that I'm not, or speak to my character, or try to label me as something that I am. If they want to think that, they're more than welcome to do so. It's a free country, and I can't control people's thoughts yet. I'm working on it.
Right.
Until that happens, that's going to be sort of my stance.
Okay. Do you want me to talk about it now?
Sure.
Okay.
He sounds.
Here's the problem with it. I think it's actually like, it seems a lot more amplified than it is. I think it's really a very tiny problem right now, but there's been a lot of drama and a lot of scandals with organizations and YouTubers, and there's been something called othering taking place. And on the bite model, I'm sure a lot of you guys know what that is. It's this model that we use in psychology to identify cults, basically, or cult-like mindsets. And it's an acronym, stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotion control. It's the 4 ways that cults control people, or 4 categories in which people develop cult-like mindsets, for lack of a better term. So let me just go through a couple of these under thought control, and we'll take a look. Instill black and white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking. It's a really, really big, important one. Use it, sorry. Use loaded language and cliches to stop complex thought. Teach thought-stopping techniques to prevent critical thoughts. Only allow positive thoughts. Reject rational analysis, critical thinking, and doubt. Label some emotions as evil or wrong. A lot of these things apply to what we've been seeing happening in certain groups.
Totally.
That I'm trying to be as democratic as I possibly can here. We've seen a lot of these things happening around us, and
yes,
some people I've talked to have been proud of this us versus them, good versus evil, black and white mindset. They've been proud of it. They've said, for the right cause, I will go us versus them. That's disturbing. That's concerning. That should not be something that you strive to do. I see cults every single day of my life that do this stuff. And the moment that you're justifying the tactics that cults use to control people is the moment you've failed in your tasks. So that's my take on it.
Well said.
As a side note, I 100% support the trans community. Always have, always will. And yeah, that's about all I have to say.
And then Casey, before you go, I just want to say one thing about one point that he made. The us versus them is okay when, I think it's like when Jimmy's tweet. I think he made a good point. It's good when it's the right us versus them. You know what I'm saying? But the thing that's being lost here is that we're all on the same side. We want the same things. The 2 sides that are fighting want the same outcome for that community. So
go ahead. You go.
I was just gonna say that the us versus them needs to be us, all of us together, versus the them that are trying to discriminate against that community, not the 2 sides that want to see the discrimination stop against that community.
I don't want to step on Casey. I actually want to hear what you have to say about this, but I do want to address that because I put a counter tweet out there to that. Us versus them is always bad, bottom line, because you're putting people into in-groups and out-groups. We can be against transphobia, homophobia, and all of those things, and that's fine. Us versus them, by definition, is placing people into groups and categorizing those people and calling them all one thing. That's exactly what's happening right now. This is us versus them. We don't want that. We want us versus homophobia, us versus transphobia, not us versus them, because then people get unfairly labeled. That's the issue.
I can see that point. Sure.
Yeah.
I actually agree with TellTale on this. I think us versus them is, generally speaking, a really, really bad thing. I mean, if you're talking about like us versus Nazis, real ones, that's one thing. Like us versus dictatorships, that's a different thing. But like on social media and in this space that we're actually talking about, in real life, even when you put people into these separate categories and you make yourself good and them bad based on these completely random criteria, and you don't take that opportunity, like maybe someone does say something that you think is absolutely horrendous, it just seems more productive to take that opportunity to talk to them about it and maybe try to change their mind. And you are never going to change somebody's mind by screaming at them and telling them how awful they are, telling them how evil they are, calling them whatever phobics, insert word here. You're never going to win an argument that way. You're never going to win an argument by punching somebody on the street because they don't agree with you. You are never going to win an argument by throwing a milkshake at somebody. And it's just not going to happen that way, because you are giving and I hate to put it this way, but because it's been segregated out this way, you're never going to get the other. You're giving the other side,
people who hate us.
Yes, you're giving the people who hate us ammunition to say that we're bad. And it basically confirms, even though it doesn't really, in their minds, it does. It confirms that you're bad when you do stuff like that. And I just don't think that that's productive. I don't think it's effective. And I think there are much better ways to handle these types of situations.
Right. I can definitely get on board with that. I was going to mention, you said we can hate Nazis. I don't hate anybody for anything. I hate Nazism, or is that what it is? Nazism? I hate Nazism because when I start talking about hating Nazis, I start putting people into the category of Nazis. I saw somebody on Twitter recently saying it's time we started calling a Nazi a Nazi. Well, sometimes people actually legitimately are not Nazis. And
most of the time, I mean, the way people use Nazi on social media, almost probably, I mean, I don't have a statistic, but a very vast majority of the time, that person is not, in fact, a Nazi.
Not a Nazi.
I mean,
what it's othering.
What I mean when I say that is, like, I don't think there's anything wrong for standing up against bad parts of society. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with standing up against the KKK. I do think that it's possible to change their minds. And you may not think it's possible, but I do. And we've seen throughout history the way that society has progressed. You can see how people's minds have been changed through various avenues. And like, I don't know, me, I prefer to do it the MLK way. Like, that's the way I think is the most effective. And so that's the route that I choose to go. I don't think our goal is
not the center.
Yeah, I think not really. I think our goals are the same. In most of everything, I think our goals are the same. I think what's different is our tactics and just what we think is going to be effective.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely can agree with that.
Yeah.
That's it. Go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say...
Awkward.
I was just going to say, I think the end game is the same. I think the steps that we feel we need to take to get there are what we differ on. And like who we're willing or what we're willing to be dishonest and disingenuous about. You know, because I'm not gonna, you know, call somebody something like a homophobe. I don't know that I've ever. Well, yeah, there is one person that comes to mind. But other than that, like, I don't throw that term around for people who have an issue with me just being gay. Like Sky Out, for example, we just talked about him. He all the time rants and raves, and that's the thing he focuses on about me being gay. I don't call him a homophobe because that's a very specific thing. He just harps on it. Like, I'm not quick to call people names that erode what that actually means, so that when somebody who's actually homophobic comes around, you can't tell the difference between them and just some windbag that won't shut up about, you know, those sort of issues. And you have to be able to tell the difference there. But the end game's just different. Like, how we get there, or the end game's the same. How we get there is what the issue is. And I don't see what they're like. Why are they doing the tactics that they're doing? Like, why are they employing the tactics that they're using? Like, ultimately, that's going to lose allies on your side. You see what I'm saying?
I agree.
It works against them, I think.
There's somebody in the chat who says that who disagrees with us completely, which is totally fine. They say that MLK was dead wrong, and that, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the comment. Speaking to people who've never had their rights in jeopardy. And I think that's an interesting assumption that you make. You don't know my life, you don't know Kyle's life, and you don't know TellTale's life. You don't know what we've come up against in our lifetimes. Right now, my rights are in jeopardy as a woman. So that's happening to me right now. I also have fewer rights than other people who are not atheists. I don't know if you know this, but there are still several states in which atheists are not allowed to run for public office. It's against the law. So I think that you just maybe need to step back a little and realize that you don't know everyone's situation. Kyle is gay. I mean, it was just a few years ago that Kyle got the right to get married. So I just don't make assumptions about people just because they're white or they look a certain way or whatever. That's the wrong thing to do. You don't know their circumstances. You don't know their life situation. So why don't you try asking questions and having a conversation? That is so much more effective.
There is the key. Like, that's what we need to focus on. And that's what everybody needs to get through their head, is that this does nothing. Sitting on the sidelines and going, you don't seem like you're as outraged as I am about a particular issue, or you don't seem like you've suffered the way that this group has suffered. Therefore, you don't have the right to speak on it, and I'm going to label you as something that you're not. Well, you don't get to do that. You need to go to these people if you have a question, like whoever that was in the chat. If you had a question on if one of us had ever been discriminated against, rather than making a dumb statement and assuming that we haven't. Especially with me. Like, if you follow the show, you should know that I'm very vocal about me being gay. And to say that somebody who's gay, for 25 years, I had to pretend like I was somebody that I wasn't, to make other people feel better about themselves. And unless you've been through that hell, then you can't tell me a fucking thing about not suffering. That's a quarter of a century of being miserable, not being who you are. So don't tell me I don't know what the fuck it means to suffer, because I do.
Yeah. I absolutely couldn't have said that better. That was just really well said, Kyle. Goddamn, bringing me to tears over here. Another thing is homophobia and implicit bias. There is a difference, I think. So, sorry, there's a part of the brain that lights up when a picture of somebody from an out group is shown to you for 50 milliseconds. That's not long enough for the brain to process that picture. I'm sorry, it's not long enough for you to visually process that picture. But your parts of your brain connected to aggression, that does light up. So somebody from a group that is not your group, a picture of that will light up that aggression stuff. That's just how it works. When black people see pictures of white people, it happens. When white people see pictures of black people, it happens. That's just the science behind it. And so there is implicit bias that exists, and it's something that we have to counter. It's something that we have to work on and try to fix. I mean, we're doing that through various legal means with hiring practices and things like that, trying to counter that. But that isn't, I don't feel like it's fair to call that homophobia or racism. That's implicit bias. There are actually people out there who actually want to kill gay people. That's homophobia. And it does come in varying degrees. There is a lower degree of homophobia, certainly, but I'm not going to say that literally every person on this planet is homophobic because they have that implicit bias, right?
Sure.
Well, and here's the other thing. When somebody does something or says something that's homophobic or transphobic or whatever other phobic, when somebody does something or says something like that, I see it as an opportunity for that person to grow and learn. And maybe, and here's the other thing, I don't know their life circumstances. I don't know what they've been indoctrinated into. I don't know what they've been taught. There are people that I currently work with who think that I worship the devil and sacrifice small animals to Satan daily because I'm an atheist. They think that because that's what they've been taught. They don't know any different. So it's an opportunity for me to show them different and to teach them different. And then maybe when the next atheist comes along, they're not going to think that same thing about them. Or, you know what I mean? And we actually have a lesbian politician in Alabama, and most of the people she's in Congress with, in state Congress with here, had never, that they knew of, that they knew of, had never met another gay person. And so she changed a lot of people's minds about what gay people are like just by normalizing her into their world. So you don't know what that other person's circumstance is. So it's really difficult to, I mean, it's actually easy. It's really easy to just jump to a conclusion and get triggered and go off. But that's not really the best move because you don't know them. So
yeah,
maybe they're not
exactly right.
Big.
Intent is everything. I've been around people that I used to work at whenever I was a chef at a restaurant, and when I first started there was this. She was older. She wasn't too old, but I'd say she's in her 60s, middle 60s. And this was before I let anybody working there know that I was gay. I heard her make several statements through others, while she's talking and just telling stories and all this sort of stuff. I could tell that she did not like gay people. She was a staunch Christian, and she would see news stories. This was around the time that it was ramping up for that decision of the Supreme Court to allow for gay marriage to be the law of the land, and she wasn't happy about that. And I would there was just some sort of a weird bond that we had. I never brought it up. I never said anything about me being gay. And we had a really good working relationship. I didn't let it bother me because I was there to work, and I didn't want any of that extra. I was going through that transition period of my life, and I didn't want any extra stress at work when I was dealing with stuff at home. And one night I was there, and she was there, and we were talking, and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why, but I just told her. I said, look, I'm gay. I hope that doesn't, alter our working relationship. I understand it's not anything that you approve of. Whatever. Within a week, she came to me and said that she had a complete change of heart, that she apologized for anything that she had said that I had heard, that may have offended me. And it was a big deal. And we didn't achieve that. Like, she didn't destroy all of that hatred that she had built up over those years because I went and shouted at her and told her that she was wrong and this sort of thing. It happened because she got to know me first, and I knew that she had been, just because I've been the same thing in my family. People, you get preached at for so long, you think your soul's in jeopardy if you don't go along with this. But once you meet somebody that is gay, and we were friendly, she didn't want to turn her back on that relationship. And I think a lot of that can go a long ways in how we interact with each other. Rather than, there are cases or instances where you need to go with a hammer and just bludgeon people with facts and truth and evidence. That is definitely needs to happen in a lot of cases, especially with people who just have hatred that are fueling them. But intent is everything with me. If I see somebody that is intentionally being homophobic, transphobic, racist, that gets dealt with differently than somebody who is coming at it with no intention to hate on any particular group of people. They're either just asking questions that are really hard questions, that are questions that make people uncomfortable. And maybe because we don't know everything about that yet. Some people tend to, that tends to make some people just default into, okay, this person doesn't support me because they're asking questions. It should be a unconditional, loyalty to the cause. And I get that. I really do. But just because people either ask questions or say something, mess up, maybe they don't have any tact. I know a lot of people in my life that don't have any tact. And it doesn't make them homophobic. It doesn't make them racist. Are they tone deaf? Yeah, maybe. Can they work on that? Sure. But it doesn't make them the evil thing that a lot of people, are trying to force onto other people. So just listen for the intent. And if there's no intent to harm, then approach it differently. Otherwise, you're just going to push that person to the other side, and they're going to stay there. And there's not going to be any reason, any motivation for them to want to meet you on your side and see where you're coming from. And that's what I see as the biggest issue that we have.
I agree. And listen for intent in context, i.e., make sure that you hear this person out with their own words in their own format on their own time. Not hearsay. I heard this person said that. That makes me think that they have bad intent. Something like that,
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to hear rumors. I heard a rumor about Aaron Ra like 4 years ago or something. Not going to say what it was, but it turned out to not be true. It's a rumor that I've since heard that was just complete BS, just completely fabricated, made up by people entirely. But that stuff spreads, so don't listen to rumors. Go to the source and figure out what that person's intent is for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also important to note, and because there are some people in the chat who are, saying sometimes you just can't reach people. That's true. A personal story, if you guys don't mind, real quick. My mom's mom, who actually died this year, we did not have a relationship for the past few years because she was incredibly bigoted and she was homophobic horribly. And though I tried, I could not reach her. And, the way that I brought this up, the first time that she ever said anything to me that was homophobic, I kind of clammed up because I didn't really know what to say. But I just told her, hey, do you realize what you're saying is a really bigoted thing to say? I didn't immediately jump down her throat and call her a homophobe. I didn't immediately jump down her throat and call her a bigot. But I did tell her that what she was saying was wrong and what she was saying was bigoted. And I tried to explain things to her. Basically, she didn't want to be around lesbians who were married to each other, couldn't even be in the same house with them because they would just lay around and make out all night. Who does that? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. She, and here's the thing that was weird. She wasn't religious. So she had no reason for any of this other than bigotry. So I tried to talk to her and go, and, I tried to reach her. I couldn't. And it's really important to me to surround myself with people who are positive and people who are going to be just who don't always have to share everything that I believe, but are decent people. And she was a very negative presence in my life. And so eventually I just had to not have contact with her, because every time I did have contact with her, it was very stressful. It was very negative. And I was not going to back down. I was not going to back down. If she couldn't be in the same room as somebody who is gay, then she was the one not invited. And that was just how it was going to be. So you can stand by your ethics and stand your ground, while at the same time, you have to leave the choice in their court at some point. And sometimes you're not going to be able to reach people. And that's unfortunate. But if I would have just screamed at her that very first time, you're a homophobic bigot, and just hung up on her, there was never a chance for anything. And while it didn't work out, I feel better about how I handled it because I knew that I tried.
Mm-hmm. Do the ends justify the means? That's really the question. I know that Jehovah's Witnesses, I've mentioned this fairly recently, maybe in a video or something like that, but Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the ends justify the means in their case. Anything for Jehovah. So they will lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, whatever it takes to further the Watchtower Society's goals. It's called theocratic warfare. And it's an ends justify the means kind of doctrine. And it just goes back to, who do we want to be on the other side? Who do we want to be when those goals are accomplished? Do we want to be able to respect ourselves afterward? I feel like that's a pretty important point to make. So
I agree wholeheartedly. And I wanted to talk tonight. It's kind of a good segue about cults, because it can be a very slight change or a very easy to fall into trap when you're talking about groups that sort of try to shape your ideology using various tactics. I mean, cults have so many different ways that they do this, and that's why I wanted to have you on to sort of to speak to that, because that's what you talk about a lot. Some of the and we're not by any means saying that these people are a cult that we're talking about. It's just I'm just segueing into that, so we don't take up the.
I was talking about the mindsets earlier. I can talk about mindsets. It's just the mindsets of cults. So.
Yeah. Because you can easily fall into that sort of trap, and so much so that, how many people died at Jonestown? It was like 900 and something.
907, right? I think. Yeah.
Okay, now imagine what it must take for 900 people to be able to be convinced that drinking this poison is better than an alternative. And I don't think people put enough seriousness into the effectiveness and the power that cults can have on people, because that's a big thing when you can convince 900 people to do that at one time.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I actually just looked up the number out of curiosity. I thought it was 907. It's 909. So we were just a few off. That was pretty close. But Jonestown is an interesting case because that's actually considered a murder-suicide. So he had I don't know how much I'm allowed to say on here. Am I allowed to like swear and say whatever I want pretty much?
You can say whatever. Right, yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Okay, so it was a murder-suicide, and that's because he had only convinced like half of the people, not even, to go through with it. So some of it's going to get a little bit graphic. I apologize. Some of the people had actually done it themselves and it was fine. And then they just lay down and die. But they had syringes that they were injecting into babies and forcing people at the face of a gun, a shotgun, to take the poison, whether they liked it or not. So he only convinced about 400 people or so. But interestingly enough, there were actually a couple of escapees who hid in the bushes until it was all over. They did interviews later. For the example that you're giving, I would say, I mean, that 400 is still a really ridiculously high number. For a better example, I would say Heaven's Gate was only 39 people, but they were so convinced. It was crazy. And check this out. Interestingly enough, you guys know, I think it's Uhura or something. It's the woman on the original Star Trek series. I forget her name now, but anyway, her brother, the actress's brother, he was in Heaven's Gate. He was one of the 39 people.
No way.
Yeah. They put bags over their heads after eating applesauce that had sleeping pills mixed in, and they just went to sleep. It was really, really insane. They had like, I forget how much, I think $5 in quarters in their pocket or something for space fare when the spaceship. I mean, imagine what goes into building up these beliefs. Imagine what goes into conditioning somebody to believe these insane, crazy, I mean, outright unreasonable things, and being so convinced of it that they actually commit suicide. Imagine that, you know?
What was the quarters thing? I haven't heard that part of it. What's that about?
So there was a spaceship supposedly traveling behind the Hale-Bopp comet, because Hale-Bopp comet was coming through our solar system in 1996, and they were saying that there was a spaceship behind it, and Doe, the leader, bought like a big, powerful telescope so that he could show the people. Couldn't see it, of course, because it wasn't there. But they were so convinced that there was a spaceship behind that thing that they killed themselves. They were supposed to, their souls were supposed to rise up into the spaceship and fly them to the next level above human. The kingdom of God is what they called it, quote unquote. And it's basically a physical location that was heaven.
Now, people, people think it's hyperbole a lot when, somebody like myself or Casey, who is also anti-theist, says that religion is harmful. They shrug it off as, well, no, it's not. Look at all the good work that religion does. And I think that this is an example of how it just absolutely is harmful. This was not that long ago. This was 96. This was not long ago. And imagine the influence and the power that you have to have over somebody to take 39 people and convince them that they need quarters in their pocket to lay down, eat this applesauce filled with sleeping pills, and then put a bag over your head. And they willingly
did it to themselves too.
I just can't.
Here's the thing for me. Like, I get that these are extreme cases, but I think that religion is harmful, period. I think all religions are cults. I think Christianity is a cult. They are just a societally accepted one. I think their beliefs are crazy. People don't get medical care for their children and instead choose to faith heal. That shit, like, to me, that stuff is just as batshit crazy. Just because it's a mainstream accepted religion doesn't make it not a cult. It's
Good
just
point.
one that people accept.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. The reason that I don't call Christianity... Oh, and one more thing I want to mention, the quarters thing. I feel like I didn't address that adequately. They were supposed to... The quarters were supposed to come up with them to the spaceship or something, with their souls, I guess. And they were supposed to give the quarters to the... Yeah, space fair is what it was for. Anyway, I don't call Christianity a cult is because I feel like it's a little bit too broad. I like to zero in on groups more specifically. You guys said you're anti-theists. I am too. I don't really carry the label with me, and this is the first time I've ever said that in public or whatever. But I do. I also, yeah. I think religion is extremely harmful too. I agree with you on that. But as far as cults go, it's a little bit more than just what's on. It's a little bit more than these groups that meet the criteria on the Byte model. A cult has to set up a system of rewards and punishments that has a hierarchy that's enforcing the rules, and it has to enforce those rules with the goal of behavior modification, which alters a person's personality. Like, I now have my authentic personality, who I really am, but for a long time I didn't. I was TellTale Jehovah's Witness, not TellTale, quote unquote. I was Owen Morgan, Jehovah's Witness.
Can I say something to that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Christianity made me do the same thing.
Right.
And
what denomination?
And look at Baptist, Independent Baptist, and look at the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the mega of behavior modification hierarchy that tries to,
I agree,
plant things in the shadows. Like
Islam is the same. I mean, Islam is no different.
To me, it's amazing how they all believe in a God, but they vary on the degrees and the areas by which they control people. Every single one of them is different.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that, you guys certainly met Mormons before, right?
Yes.
Have you ever met a Mormon that smiled a little bit too much? That was
Mitt
just
Romney.
A little bit too happy all the time? What is it?
Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Mitt Romney is a good example. They just are too happy. They're too bubbly. They're too just... it's plastic almost, right? I mean, you've seen this before, haven't you? From Jehovah's Witnesses, from Mormons, things like that. Absolutely. That is the cult personality, and there is no authentic personality in them anymore. You're actually replacing a personality with the one that you want. The cult is replacing the member's personality with the one that is most beneficial to the cult. That's what's happening. And you don't see that in every church. You don't see that in certain Methodist churches, for example. You do see some of that in Catholicism. You do see some of that in certain Southern Baptist churches and Pentecostal ones and all kinds of others.
You do see it. You do.
There are a lot of them like that. Yes, there are a lot, but there are some that aren't like that, and that is the distinction between a cult and a religion. Are they replacing somebody's authentic personality with the cult personality?
Well,
that's an interesting question.
Here's the argument I would make is that when you're indoctrinated into a religion, it develops your personality outside of what you would choose because you don't have that option. So like, even if you are in like, what one did you say that doesn't do that in Methodist? Is that what you said? Is that the example you used?
Yeah, I go to a Methodist church every now and then that doesn't really, like for holidays with my family, they don't do that.
That's a safe bet.
Okay. So even if in some of the more moderate ones, there are still ways that people are indoctrinated into it and ways that behavior is modified as children are raised by their parents that if they'd been given a more open option. You know, they're reared to do things a certain way and to think a certain way. And given a different option, they might become the person that they really would be. And you just don't know that that's their that their personality has been horribly altered because
to that
of
extent.
this. Yeah, I mean, because they're indoctrinated and raised to be that way.
That's good.
Yeah, for sure.
I can see both sides of that.
Yeah, it comes in degrees. It does come in degrees.
I agree with that.
And that's why I usually try to compare things to the bite model, and I don't just base it off of how because the bite model is actually measuring how strong that degree of cult personality is and how strong that control is. There are some groups out there that just don't really meet it at all, and their members are reasonably free for the most part. And then there are some that are willing to commit suicide for the leader. So it does come in degrees. I would say if it's, I came up with a point scoring system. Stephen Hassan, the writer of the bite model, he came up with a point scoring system that's a little bit less robust. I think he uses 3 points. I use like 8 points. But
I was going to say,
anyway,
can you go through that with us? Can you give us a rundown of what the if people aren't familiar with that?
Sure, I can do that. So there are 4 categories: behavior, information, thought, and emotion control. The 4 ways in which cults control people, basically. And under behavior control, now think about your religion, or think about your social circles, or anything like that, and see if any of these apply to you. So it starts out with promoting dependence and obedience. Let's see, modifying behavior with rewards and punishments, dictating where and with whom you live, restrict or control sexuality, control clothing and hairstyle. Let's see, regulate what and how much you eat and drink, deprive you of 7 to 9 hours of sleep, exploit you financially, restrict leisure time and activities, require you to seek permission for major decisions. Now, think about exploiting you financially. A good example of that is, what is it?
This sounds just like Casey and I's relationship, actually.
Yeah, it does it? Okay. I think you should evaluate your position in the relationship.
I'm evaluating.
But exploiting you financially, a good example of that is with Mormonism. They have tithing that's not recommended. It's necessary. If you don't pay 10% of your income, you won't be able to be a full member of the church. You won't be able to get into the temple. You won't be able to do proxy baptisms, all that other stuff. It's very oppressive in many ways, and it just drains people dry. The next one is information control. Do they deliberately withhold and distort information? Think about your social circles. Think about your religion that you're in. Forbid you from speaking with ex-members and critics. Discourage access to non-group sources of information. Divide information into insider versus outsider doctrine. Generate and use propaganda extensively. Use information gained in confession sessions against you. Gaslight to make you doubt your own memory. Require you to report thoughts, feelings, and activities to superiors. And encourage you to spy and report on others' misconduct. Does any of that stuff apply to you? Have you ever seen, this doesn't have to be a group thing. This can be a single person to another person kind of thing. That's a cult-like mindset, not necessarily a cult.
No.
But
only
people
every day.
use...
When I was in the Mormons, when I was in, like, looking into the Mormon church and joining, it was like they wanted to tell you which church to go to. Like, I was unmarried and in college, and they wanted me to go across town, and it was really hard for me to get to church at that point. Like, there's like a church.
You'd be a good Mormon, Dave.
I'm like,
you'd be a good Mormon.
Going? No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
I think in the Mormon church, don't they have a young and unmarried church that you're supposed to go to if you're young and unmarried?
It's the single stake center, yeah.
Yeah.
Singles, hey.
That's what they want it to sound like. Wow. They want it to sound like it's a place to go meet your next significant other.
I mean, because they want you to marry within the religion.
They want you to marry into the church. Exactly.
What church is better? Look, they're going to give you a church full of single people and give you magic underwear that you both can enjoy. I mean, what's better than that?
Right.
Unbelievable.
I hear their underwear is awful. What were you going to say, Casey?
The information control one, there's a lot of, I mean, Scientology pretty much hits a lot of these. But information control is really significant within Scientology.
Yes, it definitely is. I get a little bit of hate for this, but I think that I would rank the most harmful cults Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, for various reasons. I should talk about that one of these days on my channel. Anyway,
I would agree with that. And we had we actually had we had David Miscavige's dad on.
Ron
Miscavige. Did you?
Yeah, we had him on, and
that was fascinating. That was
like
he's a fascinating person.
It is, and that is a Scientology is a horrible terrorists. That's what I would label them as. They are mental terrorists.
Yep.
Yeah, Ron.
Interestingly enough.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Casey. You're good.
I was just gonna say, if you haven't read Ron Miscavige's book Ruthless, you really should. It's an exceptional book. It's heartbreaking, but it's very good. It really shows you how people get like drawn into this and why they stay. And I mean, it's really interesting.
Great guy too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
The interesting thing about Scientology is that it's not really a religious cult. It's a psychology cult. That's one of the most fascinating things, that it's gained so much traction like that. But anyway,
before you jump back in, let me just say to that point. I want to keep harping back to, imagine what it takes to have, now people who are in Scientology pay a shit ton. So these are very bright, smart, successful people. Imagine what it takes to make these smart, bright, successful people follow something, a religion that is created by a guy who wrote science fiction that tells you that thetans in the air are what causes your grief in life, and that we came from another planet and were dropped in a volcano. Imagine what it like, the amount of mental gymnastics that they're doing in your own head to get you to buy that and pay out the ass for that.
Well, and they actually they breed you. So like as you're in it, you start out not given a whole lot, but then they open up opportunities for you through their connections and their networks so that you can be a more successful person, and the more successful you are, the more that they can get from you. It's really interesting how it all works. They groom, they do. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I want to point out that for the most part, usually people who are in religions aren't stupid. I mean, I was religious, and I'm not stupid. It's just, it's not because they're unintelligent necessarily. It's because the groups are so good at controlling and manipulating people. Seriously.
Yeah. I however, was in a religion, and I was stupid. I still am.
Okay. And you're still stupid, right?
Okay. Is whatever.
So
but yeah.
Here's the as we probably got 10 minutes left, and as we hit these last 10 minutes, what can people do to not fall into those traps?
Oh, that's tough. Just keep a lookout for certain things. I'm not even talking about when you're talking to cult recruiters. I'm not even talking about when you're listening to your favorite podcaster or radio show host or whatever. I'm talking about in relationships, personal relationships. I mean, boyfriend and girlfriend kind of thing, on a personal level, all the way up to the group level. It can be on an individual or organizational level that this kind of stuff can happen. So keep a lookout for these types of things. Black and white, us versus them, good versus evil thinking is a huge one. Loaded language and cliches, extremely important. Rejection of rational analysis, critical thinking, and doubt. Stuff like that. Just keep a lookout for that stuff, because I'm reading these off of the Byte model, but A lot of this stuff is actually well-established, well-known logical fallacies is what they are. So maybe like get a book on logical fallacies and read through it and start analyzing the things that you're hearing from all directions and think about if it's rational or not.
I think you hit the nail on the head. What we need is more focus in school on critical thinking and the ability to be able to look at two sets of information and decide which of those is more based in fact than the other. And for whatever reason, I think that people, it seems to be getting worse. Like, with the rise of things like the anti-vax movement, flat Earth, these miracle cures, drinking turpentine to cure internal parasites. These movements, Danny Glass is the guy's name. He had about 90-some thousand subscribers on YouTube. YouTube finally went in and shut him down, but he was literally telling people to drink X amount of turpentine every day, and that this cleanses your body from these parasites that live in your gut. And you could see the guy literally dying in front of you. Like, he looked awful, and yet people were following this stuff. Like, they for whatever reason,
it kills the parasites by killing you.
And the person. But for whatever reason, people these days are walking away from solid, grounded science, solid, grounded medicine. They don't want to hear what the doctor has to say anymore. They don't want to hear what the news, the standard news has to say anymore. These institutions that are staples that try to ground themselves in like actual facts and evidence, people are walking away from. They would much rather watch some dope on YouTube from New Zealand tell you that you can drink turpentine and do 50 push-ups a day and live forever, instead of listening to what their doctor has to say, or that vitamin B17 will get rid of cancer and you should stop chemotherapy. Like, all of these things.
Who was that? That was in that Kent Hovind, I think.
That's Kent Hovind. That's G-Man. That sort of sector. Those they're literally telling people to eat cyanide, which is in trace amounts, and that kills the cancer. But these people like that could have an influence. I don't think G-Man has an influence, but people like Kent Hovind, if it came down to it, we'll take Jilly Juice, for example. Jilly Juice actually had a guy who was in the first stages of cancer. He went on the protocol because he thought this was his last option. He didn't have any more options left. And so he just put his heart into this. You can't really blame the guy because he thought there wasn't another option. And so Jilly told him to swear off the chemo and to just do the protocol. And the guy died not too long after that. And I'm not saying that he would have lived, a hell of a lot longer, but anyway, that was a decision that impacted because of somebody that has no medical background. And I just don't understand why there's this switch, why these movements are growing, like why they're not being just crippled when they spout bullshit like that. It makes no sense to me.
Especially like the anti-vax movement. How is that gaining ground? I have no idea how the misinformation is spreading like that. Actually, I do know, and I'll tell you how that's happening. It's because people that you know and trust are giving you this information, and you take it at face value. Your brother comes up to you and says, there's kind of some questionable stuff about those vaccines. Like, there's mercury in them and stuff. No matter how false that is, and that is just a complete misrepresentation of everything. Mm-hmm. That's in there. That's in there now. And next time you hear it, next time you see it somewhere, you're going to be more willing to believe it. And it works that way for vaccines, works that way for, the whole cyanide thing and the cancer treatments and just everything. People are desperate and people like conspiracy theories, and they want to go with what they think is true. And they want to believe that there's a boogeyman behind it trying to lie to them. And once you reach these groups, they start using these tactics. So,
yep, and those are cults too. Well, like the anti-vax, the flat Earth, all of those are cults. And you just have to be mindful of the information, and don't distrust institutions that have results, can make predictions, and are working towards solutions, like the medical industry or the science. I don't know why that just left my head. Science. Like the other things don't have answers. They don't make predictions. There is no flat Earth model because it doesn't work. And so, like, you have to be. It's just aggravating that people can't, make those sort of leaps. Anyway, that wound up being a amazing talk.
I thought so too. I was pretty happy with it.
Absolutely. Casey, do you have anything
I'm just talking to people in the chat.
Oh, the truest?
Is it not so amazing? Amazing.
No,
just one guy.
I thought it was a really good talk. I think there are a lot of things, there's people who say that, having a calm, rational conversation with somebody who has a bad idea or a bad opinion is coddling them. I totally disagree with that.
100%.
When you refuse to call a spade, you are coddling, is what they say. So, I don't know. One, I don't understand why you have to call somebody something. What is your interest? What is the benefit in labeling somebody something when you make all kinds of assumptions about them and say things when you don't know what you're talking about? There is no benefit to do this. And I've asked you that. What is benefit? What are you gaining by doing that? I don't understand.
Let me tell you, these are the people that just like to argue for the sake of argument. They don't want any sort of real change or answers, because if they did, they would adjust their tact depending on who they're dealing with. Like you, if you are engaging him like you actually want to have a conversation, and he's still telling you how you need to be handling other people, that's because he's being dishonest. And I'll tell you why. If somebody is like let's say the gay baker, right? That's a controversial issue. The baker who refused to bake a cake for a gay couple. I side with him on this. I don't think he should be forced to bake a cake for that gay couple. And here's why. When he is forced by the government to bake cakes for people that he disagrees with on any level, that's going to make him entrenched in his hatred. He is going to ride that grudge for until the day he dies, because he was forced to do something to a group of people, and he didn't have the chance, or he didn't change his mind, because he was able to meet the actual people, because he was actually able to have a conversation with those people. You do a lot better in some circumstances by letting the person get to know you, or having an open conversation. There's a guy on CNN, an African-American gentleman, that it was about 30 years ago, started going to KKK rallies, and he just listened. And eventually he got to sit down. He got to sit down to eat lunch with one of the Grand Wizards. And eventually they become friends. And eventually in his kitchen, that Grand Wizard handed over his robe and said he didn't want it anymore. And to date, that guy has over 200 KKK robes. And it wasn't because he called a spade a spade. It was because he had the tact and a deeper meaning and a message and intent than to just call somebody out for being something. He saw something in those people that he could work with, and he worked with it until he had 200 people that shed that weight of racism. And I will take that method over calling somebody a spade any day of the week.
Well, and it's hard.
One thing
that's the hard way. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is hard. One thing I wanted to mention about the gay wedding cake, you're obviously a homophobe, and that's messed up, and I don't really want to associate with you anymore over that.
I've already been called a homophobe. Literally.
I know you have. I know you have. It's ridiculous. But aside from that, I was going to say, if you guys want to see how I do it, and actually how KC does it, I think we do it the same way. Our discussion tactics. I use street epistemology, something called street epistemology. And it's kind of a modified method of Socratic reasoning to get the person to kind of see the flaws in their own arguments in a non-confrontational way. Because the moment that guard goes up, the moment they get offended or defensive for one reason or another, conversation's over. That's it. Oh, yeah. They're not even listening to your points anymore. So the key actually in discourse is to prevent that guard from going up, prevent them from shutting down, try to keep them open to conversing. And I actually detail that on my channel in 2 videos, How to Deprogram a Religious Extremist, parts 1 and 2. So you guys can look at that if you want. Subtle plug.
And I want to address the cake issue, because I totally disagree with you, Kyle, on the cake issue. And here's why.
We've had this conversation.
Well, the audience, so I want people to hear, like, sure. I disagree on the cake issue because they are a business that is providing a service to the public. And I realize they're a private business, but they are providing a service to the public. You're not allowed to discriminate for certain, classes of people. You have to provide your business services to everyone equally. And I think that if you're going to run a business like that, then that should be required. So I do think that they still do have a choice. The baker and the photographer and whoever else, they do have a choice. They could choose to run their business without discrimination per law. And even for, I don't want to say newer groups, but groups that aren't necessarily specifically listed in the laws, but would, I think, be considered part of that don't discriminate because of, these reasons. Just don't discriminate against people, service people equally, right? But they have a choice to do business like that or to not do business. If they don't want to do that, they don't have to. But then they have to give up their public business. I mean, they're providing services to the public, so they have to provide services to the public. And I don't think that they should be allowed to discriminate based on sexuality, just like they're not allowed to discriminate based on race. I mean, how do you think it would have worked and I think I saw, my husband did a super chat about this. How would you, during the civil rights time, during the civil rights movement, when people, like, stores wouldn't, let Black people shop in their shops, do you think that laws shouldn't have been made to prevent discrimination based on race?
No, of course not. But I think that's, like, it's different because the gay couple can go to just a different bakery. Like, they still have that option of, with racism, it was a all or nothing thing. With the gay couple can go to another bakery and get another cake. Well, but because you disagree with me, I now hate you. You are a homophobic racist, and I will not do this show with you anymore. You are blocked on every single social media account that I have, and I never want to hear your name ever again.
Okay, I'm the homophobe. I'm the one who's saying that they should bake the cake for the gays.
Yes, because that's how that works. Kyle.
That's how that works, apparently. Gays like cake too. You like cake. I know you do.
That's how it works. Apparently, you're taking up for the gay couple, so you're homophobic.
But Kyle, you're a cakeophobe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was actually when GE and I got married. One of the things I did before I hired any of our vendors, I asked them if they would make a cake for a gay couple. Would you take pictures for a gay wedding? And if they said no, they got marked off my list, because to me, that's an ethical thing. I'm not going to give my money to someone who would discriminate against somebody because they're gay. So that's great. That was that I thought was important to do.
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, and like this is how it's done. This is how it's supposed to be. We have completely different views on an issue. I respect her views. I see where she's coming from completely. And we are able to disagree on an issue and move on. And if everybody would just take a second to do that and not be so, you know, just anybody that doesn't think the way that I do, I hate, the world would be a much better place. I would be a lot less stressed. And I probably wouldn't have to smoke so much pot.
No, that's a bad thing. You want to smoke more of that, don't you?
I'm kidding. I had to quit. It's a long running joke. I had to give it up.
Actually quit years ago.
TellTale, take a second and let everybody know all about your podcast, your channel, what you've got coming up. Plug away.
Okay, I can do that. For reference, I actually agree with KC on the cake situation, but I do understand your position, and I think it's a respectable one. And like you said, we can disagree, and that's all right.
Sure.
But about my channel, I am TellTale. Everybody calls me TellTale Atheist, interestingly enough. I removed atheist from my name like 2 years ago, but everybody still calls me that. It's kind of funny. It doesn't bother me. I just think it's amusing. Anyway, check me out. TellTale is my channel. I have a podcast, and I have a main channel where I upload content about cults, talk about the bite model all the time. Like I said, I got some stuff on how to deprogram religious extremists and things like that. So give it a look.
Yeah, Kyle, you're going to have to change the title of the video. You're going to have to change the title of the video. I actually didn't know that either, and I talk to TellTale like almost every single day. Probably every day.
What's that? Oh, TellTale, yeah, TellTale. No, it's fine.
TellTale
You can keep atheist in there. It's really okay. I noticed that my name next, like under me there, is TellTale, though. It's not TellTale Atheist, so I appreciated that. Doesn't bother me though. Just keep it as is.
I was going to say that's because like I typed atheist in it over a hand thing.
Yeah, that's space.
Oh, really? That's funny.
Yeah. All right. Let me get these super chats out of the way. 0132132. A large chunk of the people that died in Jonestown were forced to drink poison at gunpoint. Yep. Kuyasa said it's kind of weird to hear TellTale and not see those wonderful zigzag white lines. You know, I almost was going to put together something to where when you started talking, something would just automatically started drawing on the screen, but I didn't know how to go about doing that. Kuyasa, the non-sex show is replacing my slobbery, douchebaggy personality with rational personality. We're totally a cult. I'm still waiting to see the rational part. I get the slobbery, the douchebaggery part, but the rational part is what I question. So when we get there, then we'll be making it. Godless Engineer, how does your Baker situation translate to segregation of racism in the pre-50s? Like I said, I think that they didn't have another option. Plus, two, we're just talking, like, I get the analogy, but I don't think that freedom and the cake, I don't equate the two. But I get the analogy, 100%. Amethyst Trail says, without kind people in the past being patient with me, I would never have evolved on my misguided viewpoints on LGBTQ and other matters. Thanks, guys, for being those types of people. Wow, that's a really cool thing to say. Thank you for that. It's a very cool thing to say. And Godless Engineer, Kyle, do you not recall the color-only bathrooms and whatnot? I don't, because I wasn't born then. But I know that they existed, 100%. Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they want to close out with?
Oh, good. No, I was just there. I don't know if you know this. Did you know there was a KKK rally in my hometown this past weekend?
KKK is a thing anymore.
KKK is a thing. I don't actually live in my hometown.
What's
in
going
Dayton,
on in
Ohio. Not in Huntsville. It wasn't in Huntsville.
Oh.
It was not. It was in Dayton, Ohio. There was a KKK rally in Dayton, Ohio, and actually the Truist asked me about that. And so instead of typing it, I'll just tell everybody because it's a really interesting story. The city of Dayton actually sued the sued to be able to reject the group's request to, for their permit to be able to have their rally. Because on the application it said they were going to have weapons. So the city sued to reject it, and the court system said, no, you have to let them have their rally. So the city of Dayton decided to set up a campaign called United Against Hate. And the buses, the light scrollers in front of public buses, they had United Against Hate scrolling all that day. This was this past Saturday. People outside of restaurants and shops in downtown had those chalkboard signs with all kinds of like fuck hate and fuck the KKK and a lot of fuck going on. And
I like it when a lot of fuck's going on.
And it was kind of interesting because 9 people showed up for the KKK rally. 9. Yep. And there were 600 counter protesters. So that's awesome. I thought that was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty amazing.
If to the people that say there are some things that you shouldn't either platform or that shouldn't be brought to light, the whole sunlight is the best disinfectant thing. Look at Charlottesville and that first rally that they had, because they marched and the world got to see that sort of evil there, or the ugly side of protests. What happened on the next rally? How many people showed up for the next rally?
9.
Oh, not very many.
It was like
they were in the teens, I think, or maybe 20.
Yeah, they were in the teens.
There weren't that many.
Yeah. Okay. That putting it out there, letting it out there and expose itself. Nobody wanted to be a part of that. Society's really good, I think, at sort of moderating these things. And once we saw that first one, we didn't want a part of that second one, and it's fizzled out. There hasn't been one since then. So
yeah,
let it out.
Actually, I have one more quick thing that I wanted to mention. I have my own KKK story. I live in a reasonably tiny town, and the KKK actually went up and down every street in my town, throwing bags of rice with a KKK pamphlet in it on everybody's doorstep. They put the rice in so that they could throw it from the car. So somebody rolled the window down, just throw it like that. And so I have a picture of it. Maybe I'll post it to Twitter. It was really, really strange. And it's really fascinating to read. It's been like a couple of years now, actually. I was in college still, so a couple of years at least. But it was mostly about it. The pamphlet was trying to fearmonger about Islamization of America and how many Muslims there are in the U.S. right now and all that other stuff. So
interesting.
Oh man, well,
take a look at my Twitter if you want to see a picture. I'll post it later.
Yeah, I want to see that. Here's a message to the KKK: stop with the white hoods, and unless it's like 1,000 thread count, then I understand. But if it's anything less than that, stop with the hood thing and the like. You expect us to be scared of you because you look like a ghost, but you don't. You look like a stupid crayon.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Good night.